The major 19th century philosophic influences on psychology were Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, and Kierkegaard. At least those are the three I'm going to highlight tonight. And Schopenhauer, uh, he was trying to find, like many philosophers, the underlying source of reality. I love the analogy of it's like Dorothy peeking behind the curtain to see who the wizard is or what the wizard is. And that's that's kind of what philosophy is about. We're trying to peek behind the curtain to see what's going on back there that's manifesting into this world that we're of observances. And in the medieval period, people believed God was what was behind the curtain. And we were veiled kind of for our own protection because his glory was so great. If we peeked at what was running at all, we would be consumed by God's glory. So God has this kind of veiled from his presence and glory. In the rationalist, the modern philosophic view with Rene Descartes, when he pulled back the question, he just saw like a big question mark because he believed in radical doubt. And kind of like Socrates before him, he was trying to figure out what can we actually know that wasn't taught to us or is just hearsay, but what can we actually know? And I think we discussed what he finally came up with was we can know that we are thinking things. As long as we're thinking, we're a thinking thing that exists. But if you stop thinking, you don't even know that anymore. Okay. When Schopenhauer pulled back the veil, what he saw was sex and violence. He believed that was the underlying motivators of all human behavior. And now we're starting to get into Freud, right? To a degree, when we talk about the id and what's going down below the surface, but below our conscious minds, we have all these primordial urges of reproduction and power and control and violence. And it's so fascinating to me. When I first read that, I was just like, wow, Schopenhauer, that was very insightful, at least when you look at culture. Um, think how much sex and violence sells in our culture. And whether that's a football game where you've got the smash mouth football and then it pans to the beer commercials with babes and all of that. And then it's back to the smash mouth or the cheerleaders and it's like back and forth. And if you look at a lot of the Lifetime movies or horror movies or music or songs, they are full of sex and violence in our culture. Fascinating. And he's also been accused of being a misogynist. He had some rough views on women. But I think for Schopenhauer, the main thing I want you to think about is this idea. He began discussions on the will and how each human being has a will to power. And Nietzsche, who came after him, really kind of picked up on that theme, and that became Nietzsche's major driving force, this idea of we're all in competition with each other. Like right now, Nietzsche would say Blackburn is trying to impose his idea of reality on all y'all. And Nietzsche would have like his shields up, being like, you're not going to influence me, you're not going to take away my perception of reality, etc., etc. Well, imagine how difficult it would be to counsel or provide some therapeutic relief to someone who believed you were just trying to control or manipulate them or impose your will on them. And that would be a very difficult task. But in a lot of ways, I think Nietzsche's right. He had profound psychological insights onto the human condition and kind of like what drove us and how other people use us and manipulate us. And so I think I mentioned last week, I really appreciate Nietzsche's observations. I just don't like his solution because his solution, it's a very anti-Christ solution. In fact, he saw Christianity as, he called it a slave morality, because Christianity teaches things you would want slaves to know: to be gentle, kind, meek, lowly, long suffering, forbearing, caring, kind, merciful. And Nietzsche wanted values like strength, honor, bravery, courage, things that he saw as very masculine, very Germanic, and not this Mediterranean shepherd boy religion that was foreign to him and his people. And once again, I would say your observations are correct, Nietzsche. It's the application that concerns me. But man, he had some great quotable quotes. He said, "The last true Christian died on the cross." He respected Jesus because he saw Jesus as authentic and actually pursuing. But all the people that were trying to imitate Jesus afterwards, he'd say, "You gave up your will to power." Jesus was being Jesus. You're little wannabe Jesuses. And in doing that, you're inauthentic. You're living under someone else's dictates and mores. You're not being true and authentic to yourself. Fascinating. Any questions, comments on that? Yes.
Okay, I don't know if I was trying to find out when you were talking about how, everybody has their own, like sense of morale, or how you were just breaking that down, and you're saying would be hard to counsel someone that may feel that you're trying to impose your sense of reality on them. And we talked a little bit last week about how, in recognizing our differences from the start, to say, my bias is, or this is, my perspective, and individualizing that. Do you think that's a common ground? Like, how would you go about counseling someone that had that fear that you're trying to impose your reality upon them? Would it be to define, this is my reality based on, my experience? But, so the question, how would you counsel someone like, that have that fear?
Yeah, that's really good, Cindy. Thank you. Um, can I answer that when we get to when Nietzsche wept online, if you want to see it? And I also put a link if you want to buy the book in Amazon. And it's a historical fiction novel, but it's about um, Joseph Brauer, a young Sigmund Freud, and Friedrich Nietzsche. And and so I'll talk about that in just a couple slides.